Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Ni hao, Buenos dias, Hesiche, Akwaba, Welcome, what up though? This is weekly recorded recitations of Holy Scriptures. Nobody go down. The portion this week is numero 35. Numero 36, Beha'alotecha, within the cycle. The date today is 124.9.23, semicolon 72, semicolon 1, nu 13, within the Holy Earth calendar. Again, the portion is numero 36, Beha'alotecha, which includes within the Torah, Beha'alotecha, which is Bimidbar 8:1 a 12:16. Within the Bhagavad Gita, it is the Moksha Samyasa Yogehe numero 18. Within the Digha Nikaya, it is the Patika Sutta numero 24. Within the Gospels, it is John chapters 3 y 4. Within the Quran, it is Surah Az-Zukhruf, which is numero 43. Within the Tao Te Ching, it is chapters 49 a 54. Fasting again today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Deus noster que és em céus, santificado nomen tuum, varregu salam. Dau que dau ferrão dau. Já. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher gazalnu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'asok b'dvarei Torah. Amen. Kyrie eleison. Silva mastu salve jagatehe. Sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata. Vagabir. Umuntu. Shabono. Fagako. Akwaba. Upen una amani. Una jakat. Sheshe. Kamosunida. Domo arigato. Uruma yelo wakat. Talk Odokushingu. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Lord and God. Ata Jamya Yata Afanami. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Torah. Beha'alotecha. Bimidbar 8:1 a 12:16. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aaron and say to him, When you light the lamps, the 7 lamps shall cast their light towards the face of the menorah. Aaron did so. He lit the lamps towards the face of the menorah as the Lord had commanded Moshe. This was the form of the menorah, hammered work of gold. From its base to its flower, it was hammered work. According to the form that the Lord had shown Moshe, so did he construct the menorah. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Take the Levites from amongst the children of Israel and cleanse them. This is what you shall do to them so as to cleanse them. Sprinkle them with cleansing water and pass a razor over all their flesh. Then they shall wash their garments and cleanse themselves. Then they shall take a young bull with its meal offering of fine flour mingled with oil, and you shall take a second young bull as a sin offering. You shall bring the Levites in front of the tent of meeting, and you shall gather the entire congregation of the children of Israel. You shall bring the Levites before the Lord, and the children of Israel shall lay their hands upon the Levites. Then Aaron shall lift up the Levites as a waving before the Lord on behalf of the children of Israel, that they may serve in the Lord's service. The Levites shall lay their hands on the heads of the bulls, and make one as a sin offering and one as a burnt offering to the Lord, to atone for the Levites. You shall present the Levites before Aaron and his sons, and lift them as a waving before the Lord. Thus shall you set apart the Levites from the midst of the children of Israel, and the Levites shall become mine. Following this, the Levites shall come to serve in the tent of meeting. You shall cleanse them and lift them as a waving. For they are wholly given over to me from amongst the children of Israel. Instead of those that open the womb, all the firstborn of Israel, I have taken them for myself. For all the firstborn amongst the children of Israel are mine, whether man or beast, since the day I smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. I have sanctified them for myself. And I have taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn of the children of Israel. I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and his sons from amongst the children of Israel, to perform the service for the children of Israel in the tent of meeting, and to atone on behalf of the children of Israel, so that the children of Israel will not be inflicted with plague when they approach the sanctuary. So Moshe, Aaron, and the entire congregation of Israel did this to the Levites. The children of Israel did in accordance with all that the Lord had instructed Moshe regarding the Levites. The Levites cleansed themselves and washed their clothes. Then Aaron lifted them as a waving before the Lord, and Aaron atoned for them to cleanse them. After that, the Levites came to perform the service in the tent of meeting before Aaron and before his sons. They did to them just as the Lord had commanded Moshe regarding the Levites. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, This is the rule concerning the Levites. From the age of 25 years and upwards he shall enter the service to work in the tent of meeting. From the age of 50 he shall retire from the work legion and do no further work. He shall minister with his brethren in the tent of meeting to keep the charge, but he shall not perform the service. Thus shall you do for the Levites regarding their charge. The Lord spoke to Moshe in the Sinai desert, in the 2nd year of their exodus from the land of Egypt, in the 1st month, saying, The children of Israel shall make the Pesach sacrifice in its appointed time. On the afternoon of the 14th of this month you shall make it in its appointed time. In accordance with all its statutes and all its ordinances you shall make it. Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, instructing them to make the Pesach sacrifice. So they made the Pesach sacrifice in the 1st month on the afternoon, 14th day of the month in the Sinai desert. According to all that the Lord had commanded Moshe, so did the children of Israel do. There were men who were ritually unclean because of contact with a dead person, and therefore could not make the Pesach sacrifice on that day. So they approached Moshe and Aaron on that day. Those men said to him, We are ritually unclean because of contact with a dead person. But why should we be excluded so as not to bring the offering of the Lord in its appointed time with all the children of Israel? Moshe said to them, Wait, and I will hear what the Lord instructs concerning you. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Any person who becomes unclean from contact with the dead or is on a distant journey, whether amongst you or in future generations, he shall make a Pesach sacrifice for the Lord. In the 2nd month, on the 14th day, in the afternoon, they shall make it. They shall eat it with unleavened cakes and bitter herbs. They shall not leave over anything from it until the next Matan, and they shall not break any of its bones. They shall make it in accordance with all the statutes connected with the Pesach sacrifice. But the man who was ritually clean and was not on a journey, yet refrained from making the Pesach sacrifice, his soul shall be cut off from his people, for he did not bring the offering of the Lord in its appointed time. That person shall bear his sin. If a proselyte dwells with you, and he makes a Pesach sacrifice to the Lord according to the statutes of the Pesach sacrifice, and all its ordinances, he shall make it. One statute shall apply to you, to the proselyte, and to the native-born citizen. On the day the Mishkan was erected, the cloud covered the Mishkan, which was a tent for the testimony, and at evening there was over the Mishkan like an appearance of fire, which remained until Matan. So it was always, the cloud covered it, and there was an appearance of fire at night, and according to the cloud's departure from over the tent, and afterwards the children of Israel would travel, and in the place where the cloud settled, there the children of Israel would encamp. At the bidding of the Lord the children of Israel traveled, and at the bidding of the Lord they encamped. As long as the cloud hovered above the Mishkan, they encamped. When the cloud lingered over the Mishkan for many days, the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and did not travel. Sometimes the cloud remained for several days above the Mishkan. At the Lord's bidding they traveled, and at the Lord's bidding they encamped. Sometimes the cloud remained from evening until Matan, and when the cloud departed in the Matan, they traveled. Or the cloud remained for a day and a night, and when the cloud departed, they traveled. Whether it was for 2 days, a month, or a year, that the cloud lingered to hover over the Mishkan, the children of Israel would encamp and not travel, and when it departed, they traveled. At the Lord's bidding, they would encamp, and at the Lord's bidding, they would travel. They kept the charge of the Lord by the word of the Lord through Moshe. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Make yourself 2 silver trumpets. You shall make them from a beaten form. They shall be utilized by you to summon the congregation and to announce the departure of the camps. When they blow on them, the entire congregation shall assemble to you at the entrance to the tent of meeting. If they blow one of them, the princes, the leaders of Israel's thousands, shall convene to you. When you blow a teruah, a series of short blasts, the camps which are encamped to the east shall travel. When you blow a second teruah, the camps encamped to the south shall travel. They shall blow a teruah for traveling. When assembling the congregation, you shall blow a tekiah, long blast, but not a teruah. The descendants of Aaron the priest shall blow the trumpets. This shall be an eternal statute for your generations. If you go to war in your land against an adversary that oppresses you, you shall blow a teruah with the trumpets and be remembered before the Lord your God, and thus be saved from your enemies. On the days of your rejoicing, on your festivals, and on your new moon celebrations, you shall blow on the trumpets for your ascent offerings and your peace offerings, and it shall be a remembrance before your God. I am the Lord your God. On the 20th of the 2nd month in the 2nd year, the cloud rose up from over the tabernacle of the testimony. The children of Israel traveled on their journeys from the Sinai desert, and the cloud settled in the desert of Paran. This was the first journey at God's bidding through Moshe. The banner of the camp of Yehuda's children traveled first according to their legions. Heading the legion was Nashon the son of Aminadab. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Issachar was Nathanael the son of Zuar. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Zebulun was Eliab the son of Helon. The tabernacle was dismantled, and the sons of Gershon set out, together with the sons of Merari who carried the tabernacle. Then the banner of the camp of Reuben set out according to their legions. Heading its legion was Elitzur the son of Shedur. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Shimon was Shelumiel the son of Zerushadai. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Gad was Eliasaph the son of Ruel. The Kohatites who carried the holy equipment set out, and they had erected the tabernacle before they had arrived. Then the banner of the camp of Ephraim set out according to his legions. Heading its legion was Elishama the son of Amihud. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Manasseh was Gamliel the son of Pedadzur. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Benjamin was Avidan the son of Gidoni. Then the banner of the camp of Dan set out, the collector for all the other camps according to his legions. Heading its legion was Echayedzer the son of Amishadai. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Asher was Pagiel the son of Achran. Heading the legion of the tribe of the children of Naphtali was Ahira the son of Enon. These are the travels of the children of Israel according to their legions, and then they traveled. Then Moshe said to Hobab the son of Reuel the Midianite, Moshe's father-in-law, We are traveling to the place about which the Lord said, I will give it to you. Come with us, and we will be benevolent to you, for the Lord has spoken of benevolent fortune for Israel. He said to him, I won't go, for I will go to my land and my birthplace. He said, Please don't leave us, for because you are familiar with our encampments in the desert, and you will be our guide. And if you go with us, then we will bestow on you the benevolence which God grants us. They traveled at a distance of 3 days from the mountain of the Lord, and the ark of the Lord's covenant traveled 3 days ahead of them to seek for them a place to settle. The cloud of the Lord was above them by day when they traveled from the camp. So it was whenever the ark set out, Moshe would say, Arise, O Lord, may your enemies be scattered, and may those who hate you flee from you. And when it came to rest, he would say, Repose, O Lord, amongst the myriads of the thousands of Israel. The people were looking to complain, and it was evil in the ears of the Lord. The Lord heard and Adonai's anger flared, and a fire from the Lord burned amongst them, consuming the extremes of the camp. The people cried out to Moshe. Moshe prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. He named that place Tab-erah, for the fire of the Lord had burned amongst them there. But the multitude amongst them began to have strong cravings. Then even the children of Israel once again began to cry, and they said, Who will feed us meat? We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt free of charge, the cucumbers, the watermelons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our bodies are dried out, for there is nothing at all. We have nothing but manna to look at. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its appearance was like the appearance of crystal. The people walked about and gathered it, then they ground it in a mill or crushed it in a powder, cooked it in a pot, and made it into cakes. It had a taste like the taste of oil cake. When the dew descended on the camp at night, the manna would descend upon it. Moshe heard the people weeping with their families, each one at the entrance of his tent. The Lord became very angry, and Moshe considered it evil. Moshe said to the Lord, "Why have you treated your servant so badly? Why have I not found favor in your eyes, that you placed the burden of this entire people on me? Did I conceive this entire people? Did I give birth to them, that you say to me, carry them in your bosom as the nurse carries the suckling to the land you promised their forefathers? Where can I get meat to give all these people? For they are crying on me, saying, 'Give us meat to eat.' Alone I cannot carry this entire people, for it is too hard for me. If this is the way you treat me, please kill me if I have found favor in your eyes, so that I may not see my misfortune." Then the Lord said to Moshe, "Assemble for me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the people's elders and officers, and you shall take them to the tent of meeting, and they shall stand there with you. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will increase the spirit that is upon you and bestow it upon them. Then they will bear the burden of the people with you, so that you need not bear it alone. And to the people you shall say, Prepare yourselves for mañana, and you shall eat meat, because you have cried in the ears of the Lord, saying, Who will feed us meat? For we had it better in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat. You shall eat it not 1 day, not 2 days, not 5 days, not 10 days, and not 20 days, but even for a full month, until it comes out your nose and nauseates you. Because you have despised the Lord who is amongst you, and you cried before Adonai, saying, Why did we ever leave Egypt? Moshe said, 600,000 people on foot are the people in whose midst I am, and you say, I will give them meat, and they will eat it for a full month. If sheep and cattle were slaughtered for them, would it suffice for them? If all the fish of the sea were gathered for them, would it suffice for them? Then the Lord said to Moshe, Is my power limited? Now you will see if my word comes true for you or not. Moshe went out and told the people what the Lord had said, and he assembled 70 men of the elders of the people and stood them around the tent. The Lord descended in the cloud and spoke to him, and Adonai increased some of the spirit that was on him and bestowed it on the 70 elders. And when the spirit rested upon them, they prophesied, but they did not continue. Now 2 men remained in the camp. The name of one was Eldad, and the name of the second was Medad. And the spirit rested upon them, and they were amongst those written, but they did not go out to the tent, but prophesied in the camp. The lad ran and told Moshe, saying, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Yehoshua the son of Nun, Moshe's servant from his youth, answered and said, Moshe, my master, imprison them. Moshe said to him, Are you zealous for my sake? If only all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord would bestow Adonai's spirit upon them. Then Moshe entered the camp, he and the elders of Israel. A wind went forth from the Lord and swept all quails from the sea and spread them over the camp, about 1 day's journey this way and 1 day's journey that way, around the camp, about 2 cubits above the ground. The people rose up all that day and all night and the next day and gathered the quails. Even the one who gathered the least collected 10 heaps. They spread them around the camp in piles. The meat was still between their teeth. It was not yet finished, and the anger of the Lord flared against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very mighty blow. He named that place Kivrot Hata'ava, graves of craving, for there they buried the people who craved. From Kivrot Hata'ava, the people traveled to Hazarot, and they stayed in Hazarot. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moshe regarding the Cushite woman he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. They said, Has the Lord spoken only to Moshe? Hasn't Adonai spoken to us too? And the Lord heard. Now this man Moshe was exceedingly humble, further so than any person on the face of the earth. The Lord suddenly said to Moshe, Aaron and Miriam, Go out, all 3 of you, to the tent of meeting, and all 3 went out. The Lord descended in a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tent. Adonai called to Aaron and Miriam, and they both went out. Adonai said, Please listen to my words. If there be prophets amongst you, I, the Lord, will make myself known to him in a vision. I will speak to him in a dream. Not so is my servant Moshe. He is faithful throughout my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth, in a vision and not in riddles, and he beholds the image of the Lord. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moshe? The wrath of the Lord flared against them, and Adonai left. The cloud departed from above the tent, and behold, Miriam was afflicted with zara'at, as white as snow. Then Aaron turned to Miriam, and behold, she was afflicted with zara'at. Aaron said to Moshe, Please, master, do not put sin upon us for acting foolishly and for sinning. Let her not be like the dead, which comes out of his more's womb, with half his flesh consumed. Moshe cried out to the Lord, saying, I beseech you, God, please heal her. The Lord replied to Moshe, "If her far were to spit in her face, would she not be humiliated for 7 days? She shall be confined for 7 days outside the camp, and afterwards she may enter." So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not travel until Miriam had entered. Then the people departed from Hazarot, and they camped in the desert of Paran. Bhagavad Gita, Moksha Samyasa Yogehe, número 18. Arjuna said, "I desire to know the true nature of sannyasa and tyaga, as distinguished from each other, O mighty Hrishikesa, O slayer of Kesi." Sri Krishna said, "The renunciation of works induced by desire is understood by the sages to be sannyasa, whilst the surrender of the fruits of all works is called tyaga by the wise." Some philosophers declare that all works should be relinquished as evil. Others say that works of sacrifice, gift, and austerity should not be given up. Learn from me, O best of Bharatas, the truth about relinquishment, for relinquishment is declared to be of 3 kinds, O tiger amongst men. Acts of sacrifice, gift, and austerity must not be given up, but should be performed, for verily sacrifice, gift, and austerity purify the wise. Even these works, however, should be done without attachment and desire for fruit. This, O Partha, is my conclusive and final judgment. The renunciation of obligatory action is not proper. Its abandonment from delusion is declared to be of the nature of tamas. The renunciation of a man who abandons a duty from fear of physical suffering because it is painful is of the nature of rajas. It does not bring him the fruit of renunciation. When a man performs an obligatory action only because it ought to be done and renounces all attachment of the fruit, his renunciation, O Arjuna, is characterized by sattva. The wise man of renunciation, who is endowed with sattva and whose doubts are dispelled, never hates a duty that is disagreeable, nor feels attachment to a duty that is agreeable. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to renounce action entirely, but he who renounces the fruit of action is regarded as one who has renounced. The threefold fruit of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrues after death to those who have not renounced, but none whatever to the sannyasis. Learn from me, O mighty Arjuna, the 5 causes that bring about the accomplishment of a work, as declared in the philosophy of knowledge, which puts an end to all action. The body, the doer, the different senses, the many and various functions of the vital breaths, and the presiding celestial as the 5th. Whatever action a man performs with his body, speech, or mind, whether right or wrong, these 5 are its causes. That being so, the man of perverted mind, who on account of impure understanding looks on the self, the absolute, as the agent, he sees not at all. He who is free from the feeling of I consciousness, and whose understanding is undefiled, though he slays these men, he slays not, nor is he bound. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower form the threefold incitement to action, and the instrument, the object, and the doer are the threefold basis of action. Knowledge, action, and the doer are declared in the science of the gunas to be of 3 kinds, according to the distinction of the gunas. Hear of them as they are. The knowledge by which one indestructible substance is seen in all beings, undivided in the divided, know that knowledge is of the nature of sattva. But that knowledge through which one sees in all beings various entities of different kinds as differing from one another, know that knowledge is of the nature of rajas. And the knowledge that is confined to one single effect as if it were the whole, and is without reason, without foundation in truth, and trivial, that knowledge is declared to be of the nature of tamas. The action that is obligatory and is done without love or hate by one who desires no fruit and who is free from attachment that action is characterized by sattva. But the action that is performed with much effort by one who seeks to gratify his desires or who is prompted by a feeling of I, that action is declared to be of the nature of rajas. Whereas the action that is undertaken through ignorance, without regard to consequences or loss or injury, and without regard to one's ability, that action is said to be of the nature of tamas. The doer who is free from attachment and egoism, who is endowed with fortitude and zeal, and who is unaffected by success and failure, he is said to be of the nature of sattva. The doer who is passionately attached to action and desirous of its fruit, who is greedy, violent, and impure, and who is moved by joy and sorrow, he is declared to be of the nature of rajas. The doer who is unsteady, vulgar, and arrogant, deceitful, malicious, and indolent, desponding, and procrastinating, he is said to be of the nature of tamas. Hear from me the threefold distinction of understanding and firmness according to the gunas, O Dhananjaya, as I explain them severally and fully. The understanding that determines for a man the path of work and renunciation, right and wrong action, that determines for a man fear and fearlessness, bondage and liberation, that Oparta is of the nature of sattva. The understanding that gives a distorted apprehension of dharma and adharma, of what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, that Oparta is of the nature of rajas. The understanding that being enveloped in darkness regards adharma and dharma as reverses all values, that Oparta is of the nature of tamas. The firmness that is accompanied by unswerving concentration and by which one controls the activities of the mind, the pranas, and the senses, that Oparta is of the nature of sattva. But the firmness by which one holds fast to dharma, pleasure, and wealth, desiring the fruit of each through an intense attachment, that Oparta is of the nature of rajas. And the firmness by which a stupid person does not give up his sleep, fear, grief, despondency, and sensuality, that Oparta is of the nature of tamas. And now hear from me, O Bharata, Prince, the three kinds of happiness. That in which a man comes to rejoice by practice, and in which he reaches the end of pain, and that which is like poison at first but like nectar in the end. That happiness born of the clear knowledge of the self is said to be of the nature of sattva. That which arises from the contact of the senses with their objects, and which is like nectar at first but like poison in the end, that happiness is said to be of the nature of rajas. But that which deludes the soul at the beginning and even after its termination, and which springs from sleep, sloth, and error, that happiness is said to be of the nature of tamas. There is no creature here on earth nor amongst the angels in heaven who is free from the three gunas born of prakriti. The duties of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras have been assigned according to the gunas born of nature. Control of the mind, control of the senses, austerity, cleanliness, forbearance, and uprightness, as also knowledge, realization, and faith. These are the duties of a Brahmin born of his own nature. Heroism, high spirit, firmness, resourcefulness, dauntlessness in battle, generosity, and sovereignty. These are the duties of a Kshatriya born of his own nature. Agricultural, cattle rearing, and trade are the duties of a Vaisya born of his own nature. And the duty of a Sudra born of his own nature is action consisting of service. Man attains high perfection by devotion to his duty. Hear from me, O Arjuna, how perfection is attained by him who is devoted to his own duty. By worshipping Brahman, from whom all beings proceed and by whom the whole universe is pervaded, by worshipping Brahman, through the performance of duty does a man attain perfection. By worshipping Brahman, through the performance of duty does a man attain perfection. Better is one's own dharma, though imperfect, than the dharma of another well performed. He who does the duty ordained by his own nature incurs no sin. One ought not to give up the work to which one is born, O son of Kunti, though it has its imperfections. For all undertakings are beset with imperfections as fire with smoke. He whose mind is not attached to anything, who has subdued his heart, and who is free from all longing, he by renunciation attains supreme perfection, which is freedom from action. Learn from me in brief, O son of Kunti, how one who has reached such perfection realizes Brahman, which is the supreme consummation of knowledge. Endowed with a pure understanding, restraining the self with firmness, turning away from sound and other objects, and abandoning love and hatred, dwelling in solitude, eating but little, controlling the speech, body, and mind, ever engaged in meditation and concentration, and cultivating freedom from passion, forsaking conceit and power, pride and lust, wrath and possessions, tranquil in heart and free from ego, he becomes worthy of becoming one with Brahman. Having become Brahman and being tranquil in heart, he neither grieves nor desires. He treats alike all beings and attains supreme devotion to me. By that devotion he knows me, knows what in truth I am and who I am. Then having known me in truth, he forthwith enters into me. Even though engaged in all kinds of action, a man who has taken refuge in me reaches by my grace the eternal and imperishable abode. Surrendering in thought all actions to me, regarding me as the supreme goal, and practicing steadiness of mind, fix your heart, O Arjuna, constantly on me. Fixing your heart on me, you will overcome every difficulty by my grace, but if from self-conceit you do not listen to me, you shall perish utterly. If, indulging in self-conceit, you say to yourself, I will not fight, vain is your resolution, your nature will compel you. Bound by your own karma, O son of Kunti, which is born of your very nature, what through delusion you seek not to do, you shall do even against your will. The Lord dwells in the hearts of all beings, O Arjuna, and by Brahman's Maya causes them to revolve as thought mounted on a machine. Take refuge in Brahman alone with all your soul, O Bharata. By Brahman's grace you will gain supreme peace and the everlasting abode. Thus has wisdom, further profound than all profundities, been declared to you by me. Reflect upon it fully and act as you will. Again listen to my supreme word, the profoundest of all. You are well beloved of me, therefore I will tell you what is for your benefit. Fix your heart on me, give your love to me, worship me, bow down before me, so shall you come to me. This is my pledge to you, for you are dear to me. Abandon all different forms of dharma and come to me alone for shelter. I will deliver you from all sins. Do not grieve. You must not speak about it to one who is not austere in life or who is without devotion, nor to one who does not wish to hear, nor to one who speaks ill of me. He who with supreme devotion to me teaches this deeply profound philosophy to those who are devoted to me shall without question come to me. There is none amongst men who can do anything further pleasing to me than he, nor shall there be another on earth dearer to me than he. And he who will study this sacred dialogue of ours, by him shall I have been worshipped through knowledge as a sacrifice. Such is my judgment. And the man who hears this full of faith and free from malice, even he, liberated from sin, shall attain the happy regions of the righteous. Has it been understood by you, O Partha, with an undivided mind? Has your delusion born of ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjaya? Arjuna said, my delusion is gone. I have regained my memory through your grace, O Krishna. I am firm, I am free from doubt. I will act according to your word. Sanjaya said, thus did I hear this wonderful dialogue between Krishna and the high-souled Arjuna, which caused my hair to rise. Through the grace of Vyasa, I heard this supreme and profound yoga direct from Krishna, the master of yoga, by Brahman's self, teaching it. O King, every time I remember this wonderful sacred dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I rejoice again and again and over again. And as often as I remember that most wonderful form of Krishna, great is my astonishment, O King, and I rejoice again and again. The side that has Krishna, the master of yoga, and the side that has Arjuna, the wielder of the Gandiva, there surely will be fortune, victory, prosperity, and right conduct. Such is my conviction. Dignikaya, Patika Sutta, numero 24. Thus have I heard. The Exalted One The Exalted One was once staying amongst the Mallas at Anupiya, one of their towns. Now the Exalted One, having robed himself early in the early matin, put on his cloak and took his bowl and entered the town for alms. And he thought, it is too early for me now to go through Anupiya for alms. I might go to the pleasaunce where Bhagava, the Wanderer, dwells, and call upon Bhagava. So the Exalted One went to the pleasaunce and to the place where Bhagava, the Wanderer, was. Then Bhagava spake thus to the Exalted One, Let my master the Exalted One come near. Welcome to the Exalted One. It is long since the Exalted One has taken the opportunity to come our way. May it please you, sir, to be seated. Here is a seat made ready. The Exalted One sat down thereon, and Bhagava, taking a certain low stool, sat down beside him. So seated, Bhagava the Wanderer spake thus to the Exalted One. Some days ago, master, a long many days ago, Sunakata of the Lakavis called on me and spake thus. I have now given up the Exalted One, Bhagava. I am remaining no longer under him as my teacher. Is the fact truly so, just as he said? It is just so, Bhagava, as Sunakata of the Lakavis said. Some days ago, Bhagava, a long many days ago, Sunakata the Lakavi came to call on me and spake thus. Sir, I now give up the Exalted One. I will henceforth remain no longer under him as my teacher. When he told me this, I said to him, But now, Sunakata, have I ever said to you, Come, Sunakata, live under me as my pupil? No, sir, you have not. Or have you ever said to me, Sir, I would fain dwell under the Exalted One as my teacher? No, sir, I have not. But if I said not the one, and you said not the other, what are you and what am I that you talk of giving up? See, foolish one, and how much the fault here is your own? Well, but sir, the Exalted One works no mystic wonders surpassing the power of ordinary men. Why now, Sunakata, why have I ever said to you, Come, take me as your teacher, Sunakata, and I will work for you mystic wonders surpassing the power of ordinary men? You have not, sir. Or have you ever said to me, Sir, I would fain take the Exalted One as my teacher, for he will work for me mystic wonders beyond the powers of ordinary men? I have not, sir. But if I said not the one, and you said not the other, what are you and what am I, foolish man, that you talk of giving up? What think you, Sunakata, whether mystic wonders beyond the power of ordinary men are wrought, or whether they are not? Is the object for which I teach the Dharma this, that it leads to the thorough destruction of ill and for the doer thereof? Whether, sir, they are so wrought or not, that is indeed the object for which the norm is taught by the Exalted One. If then, Sunakata, it matters not to that object whether mystic wonders are wrought or not, of what utilization to you would be the working of them? See, foolish one, and how much the fault here is your own? But, sir, the Exalted One does not reveal to me the beginning of things. Why now, Sunakata, have I ever said to you, Come, Sunakata, be my disciple, and I will reveal to you the beginning of things? Sir, you have not. Or have you ever said to me, I will become the Exalted One's pupil, for he will reveal to me the beginning of things? Sir, I have not. But if I have not said the one, and you have not said the other, what are you and what am I, foolish man, that you talk of giving up on that account? What think you, Sunakata, whether the beginning of things be revealed, or whether it be not? Is the object for which I teach the Dharma this, that it leads to the thorough destruction of ill for the doer thereof? Whether, sir, they are revealed or not, that is indeed the object for which the Dharma is taught by the Exalted One. If then, Sunakata, it matters not to the object whether the beginning of things be revealed or whether it be not, of what utilization to you would it be to have the beginning of things revealed? See, foolish one, and how much the fault here is your own? In many ways have you, Sunakata, spoken my honor amongst the Vajrayans, saying, Thus is the Exalted One. He is an Arahat fully awakened. Wisdom he has and righteousness. He is the welfare. He has the knowledge of the worlds. He is the supreme driver of men willing to be tamed, the teacher of devas and men, the awakened and exalted one. In such wise have you been wont amongst the Vajrayans to utter honor of me. In many ways have you, Sunakata, spoken the honor of the Dharma amongst the Vajrayans. Well proclaimed by the Exalted One is the Dharma as bearing on this present life, not involving time, inviting all to come and see, to be understood by every wise man for himself. In such wise have you been wont amongst the Vajrayans to utter honor of the Dharma. In many ways have you, Sunakata, spoken honor of the Sangha amongst the Vajrayans. Well are they trained, the Sangha of the Exalted One's disciples, even for the 4 branches thereof, the 8 classes of individuals well trained in uprightness, in principles, and in courtesy. This Sangha should be respected and revered. Gifts should be given it, and homage, for it is the world's unsurpassed field for sowing merit. In such wise have you been wont amongst the Vajrayans to utter honor of the Sangha. I tell you, Sunakata, I make known to you, Sunakata, that there will be those that shall say concerning you thus, Sunakata of the Lakavis was not able to live the holy life under Gautama the recluse, and he not being able to adhere to it hath renounced the discipline and turned to lower things. Thus Bhagavad did Sunakata of the Lakavis, addressed by me, depart from this doctrine and discipline as one doomed to disaster and purgatory. At one time, Bhagavad, I was staying amongst the Bhumus. Uttaraka is a village of theirs, and having dressed early one matin, I afterwards took my bowl, put on my robe, and went into Uttaraka for alms. Now at that time a cynic there, Bandilegs the Katiya, was wont to behave like a dog, walking on all fours or sprawling on the ground and taking up food, whether hard or soft, with his mouth only, without utilizing his hands. Sunakata, seeing him act thus, thought, how truly admirable does he look, the holy man, the recluse, creeping on all fours, or sprawling on the ground, taking up food, whether hard or soft, with his mouth only. Then I, Bhagavad, knowing what was in his mind, said to him, do you, O foolish man, confess yourself as following the son of the Sakyas? What does the Exalted One mean, sir, in saying this to me? Did you not think, Sunakata, as you looked on that naked cynic, Kora the Katiya, on all fours, sprawling on the earth, taking up his food, whether hard or soft, with his mouth only, how admirable were it to be a holy man like that? Yes, master, I did. What then? Does the Exalted One begrudge arahatship in others? Nay, foolish man, I begrudge in no one arahatship. It is only in you that this vicious opinion has arisen. Put it away, let it not become a lasting source of harm and ill to you. This naked cynic Kora the Katiya, whom you, Sunakata, fancy so admirable an arahat, will die 7 days hence of an epilepsy, and dying he will be reborn as one of the Kalakanjas, the very lowest of the Asura groups. As dead he will be laid on a heap of banana grass in the charnel field. You might go up to him if you wish and ask him, do you know your own destiny, friend Kora? Perchance he will reply, I know my own destiny, friend Sunakata. There are Asuras called Kalakanjas, the very lowest of the Asura groups. 'Tis amongst them I am reborn. Thereat Bhagavad, Sunakata of the Lakavis went up to the cynic Kora the Katiya and spake thus to him. Friend Kora the Katiya, the Samana Gautama has declared that on the 7th day hence the naked ascetic Kora the Katiya will die, and dying he will be reborn as one of the Kalankajas, the very lowest of the Asura groups. As dead he will be laid on a heap of banana grass in the charnel field. Wherefore, friend Kora the Katiya, you should partake of food with great moderation. You should drink liquids with great moderation, so that the word of the Samana Gautama may prove wrong. Then Sunakata so firmly did he disbelieve the Tathagata, counted up the 7 days one after another. But Bhagava, on the 7th day, Kora the Katiya died of an epilepsy, and dying was reborn as one of the Kalankajas, the very lowest of the Asura groups, and as dead was laid on a heap of banana grass in the charnel field. Now Sunakata heard Bhagava that Kora the Katiya lay dead in the charnel field on a heap of banana grass, and he went thither where the corpse was lying, and thrice he smote this naked ascetic with his hand, saying, do you know, friend Kora the Katiya, what has been your destiny? Then Bhagavad, Kora the Katiya, rubbing his back with his hand, raised himself up and said, I know, friend Sunakata, what is my destiny. Amongst the Kalankajas, the very lowest of the Asura groups, there am I reborn. So saying, he fell back supine. Thereupon Bhagavad, Sunakata the Lakavi came to me, and saluting me, sat down beside me. So sitting, I spake to him thus, what think you, Sunakata? Has it happened to the cynic Kora the Katiya, even as I declared to you, or otherwise? It has happened to him even as the Exalted One declared to me, not otherwise. What think you, Sunakata? This being so, has the mystic wonder been by power beyond that of ordinary men been wrought, or has it not? Surely, sir, this being so, such a mystic wonder has been wrought. And is it then to me, you foolish man, who have thus by power beyond that of ordinary men wrought a mystic wonder, that you say, sir, the Exalted One works me no miracles with his superhuman gifts? See, foolish man, how much you have committed yourself. Thus Bhagavad did Sunakata of the Lakavis, addressed by me, depart from his doctrine and discipline, as one doomed to disaster and to purgatory. At one time, Bhagavad, I was staying at Vasali in the great wood at the Gable Hall. Now at that time there was a naked ascetic residing at Vasali named Kandara Masuka, and great was his gain in his fame in the Vajjian home. He had vowed and taken upon himself 7 rules of life, to wit, so long as I live I will be of the naked ascetics. I will put on no garment so long as I live. So long as I live, I will be a devotee, devoted to a life of chastity. So long as I live, I will maintain myself by spirituous drink and by flesh, eating no rice broth or gruel. I will never go beyond the Udena shrine on the east of Vesali, the Gotamaka shrine on the south, the Santamba shrine on the west, and the Bahupota shrine on the north. It was because of his having laid upon himself these seven rules of life that he had gained and fame beyond all others in the Vajrayan home. Now Bhagava, the Sunakata of the Lakavis, went to call on Kandara Masuka and asked him a question. Kandara Masuka did not follow the question, and not following manifested resentment, dislike, and anger. Then it occurred to Sunakata, we might come into conflict with the admirable Arhat recluse. Let nothing happen that would make for lasting harm and ill to us. Thereupon Bhagava, Sunakata the Lakavi, came to call upon me, and saluting me, he sat down beside me, and thus I spake to him. Do you, O foolish man, still confess yourself as following the son of the Sakyas? What does the Exalted One mean in saying that? Why, Sunakata, did you not go up to the naked ascetic Kandara Masuka and ask him a question which he did not follow, and over which he manifested anger, dislike, and resentment? And did it not occur to you we might come into conflict with the admirable Arahat and recluse? Let nothing happen that would make for lasting harm and ill to us. It was even so, sir. Does the Exalted One begrudge Arahatship in anyone? Nay, foolish man, I begrudge in no one Arahatship. To you only has this vicious opinion arisen. Get rid of it, let that not make for lasting harm and ill to you. This naked ascetic Kandara Masuka, whom you think so admirable an Arahat recluse, will ere long end his days clothed and married, his diet rice broth and rice gruel, his range past all shrines in Vesali, and he will die fallen from his fame. And ere long Bhagava, that ascetic, ended his days clothed and married, his diet rice broth and rice gruel, his range past all shrines in Vesali, and died fallen from his fame. Now Sunakata heard that Kandara Masuka the ascetic had ended his days clothed and married, his diet rice broth and rice gruel, his range past all shrines in Vesali, and died fallen from his fame. Thereupon he came to call upon me, and saluting me, he sat down beside me, and I spake to him thus. What think you, Sunakata? Has it happened to this naked ascetic Kandara Masuka, even as I declare to you, or otherwise? It has happened to him even as the Exalted One declared to me, not otherwise. What think you, Sunakata? This being so, has a mystic wonder by power surpassing that of ordinary men been wrought, or has none been wrought? Surely, sir, this being so, such a mystic wonder has been wrought. And is it then to me, you foolish man, who have thus, by power surpassing that of ordinary men, wrought a mystic wonder, that you say, Sir, the Exalted One works no mystic wonder? See, foolish man, see how much you have committed yourself? Thus Bhagava did Sunakata the Lakavi, addressed by me, depart from this doctrine and discipline, as one doomed to disaster and to purgatory. At one time, Bhagava, I was staying there at Vesali in the Great Wood at the Gable Hall. Now at that time the naked ascetic Patika's son was residing at Vesali, and great was his gain and his fame in the Vajrayan home. He held forth thus in the Vesali assemblies. Both the Samana Gotama and I affirm that we have insight. Now it becomes one who affirms this to show, in virtue of his insight, mystic wonders by his extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama would come halfway, I would meet him halfway. Then we could both work a mystic wonder by our extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama work one such mystic wonder, I will work two. If he work two, I will work four. If he will work four, I will work 8. Thus, to whatever extent he may perform, I will perform double. Then Bhagava, Sunakata the Lakavi, came to me, and saluting me sat down beside me. And so seated he said this, The naked ascetic Patika's son, sir, held forth thus in the Vesali assemblies. Both the Samana Gotama and I affirm that we have insight. Now it becomes one who affirms this to show, in virtue of his insight, mystic wonders, by his extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama would come halfway, I would meet him halfway. Then we could both work a mystic wonder by our extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama work one such mystic wonder, I will work 2. If he work 2, I will work 4. If he will work 4, I will work 8. Thus, to whatever extent he may perform, I will perform double. And when he had thus spoken, Bhagava, I said to Sunakata, Incompetent Sunakata is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdrew not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounced not that opinion. If he thinks that, holding on to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. Let the Exalted One take heed to what he says. Let the welfarer take heed to what he says. What do you mean? What mean you, Sunakata, that you say this to me? Let the Exalted One take heed to what he says. Let the welfarer take heed to what he says. It may be, sir, that the Exalted One's words convey an absolute statement respecting what would happen in any case to Patika's son, should he as such come to meet the Samana Gotama. But Patika's son might come in an altered shape to meet the Exalted One, and that would render the Exalted One's words false. Now, Sutakata, would a Tathagata utter any speech that was ambiguous? Well now, sir, is it by the Exalted One's own discernment that he knows incompetent is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion? If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet me, the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. Or has some deva announced, incompetent is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion? If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. To the Tathagata. I have both discerned in my mind, Sunakata, incompetent is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion. If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. And a deva has also announced to me, incompetent is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion. If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet me, the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. For Ajita, the general of the Lokavis, who died the other day, has been reborn in the realm of the 33. He came to me and declared this to me. Shameless, sir, is the naked ascetic Patika's son. A liar, sir, is Patika's son. He made this statement concerning me amongst the Vajjans. Ajita, the general of the Lokavis, is reborn in the great purgatory. But I am not reborn there, sir. I am reborn in the realm of the 33. Shameless is Patika's son, sir, and a liar. Incompetent is he to meet Samana Gotama face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion. If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. Thus, Sunakata, have I both discerned in my mind, incompetent is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion. If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. And the Deva has also announced to me, incompetent is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion. If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. Now, Sudakanta, when I have gone to Vasali on my round for alms, I have dined, and am on the way back. I will go to Patika's son's park. Tell him then, Sunakata, whatever you think right. Then I, Bhagava, having dressed early and taken my bowl and robe, entered Vasali for alms. And after my meal, as I returned, I went into Patika's son's park for siesta. Then Bhagava, Sunakata the Lokavi, in a great hurry, went into Vasali, and went to all the most distinguished of the Lokavis, and told them, saying, Friends, the Exalted One, on returning from his round for alms, and after dining, has gone to Patika's son's park for siesta. Come forth, sirs, come forth. There is going to be wonder-working by the superhuman gifts of admirable recluses. Then those most distinguished amongst the Lokavis thought, There is going to be wonder-working by the superhuman gifts of admirable recluses. Come then, let's go. And wherever there were eminent Brahmins and wealthy householders of position, who had become wanderers or Brahmins or different sects, there he went and told them, saying, Friends, that Exalted One, on returning from his round for alms and after dining, has gone to Patika's son's park for siesta. Come forth, sirs, come forth. There is going to be wonder-working by the superhuman gifts of admirable recluses. And those most eminent Brahmins and wealthy householders of position, who had become wanderers or Brahmins of different sects, thought, There is going to be wonder-working by the superhuman gifts of admirable recluses. Come then, let's go. So, Bhagava, those eminent Lokavis and distinguished Brahmins and wealthy householders of position, now wanderers or Brahmins of different sects, all repaired to the park of the naked ascetic Patika son. And they formed an assembly of several hundred, nay, of several thousand persons. Now Patika's son heard all these people were come out, and that the Samana Gotama himself was sitting during siesta in his park, and hearing of it, fear came upon him, and trembling and creeping of the flesh. And thus afeared, agitated, and in dread, he went away to the Tinduka pollards, the wanderers' park. Then that company, Bhagava, heard that he had gone thither in a panic, and they charged a certain man, saying, "Come, my man, go to the Tinduka pollards, and find Patika's son, the naked ascetic, and say this to him. We have come out, friend Patika's son. There are come out many distinguished Lakavis and Brahmins and wealthy householders, and various teachers amongst Brahmins and recluses. And the Samana Gotama himself is sitting during siesta in your reverence's park. You, friend Patika's son, have delivered this speech in the assembly at Vasali. Both the Samana Gotama and I affirm that we have insight. Now it becomes one who affirms this to show, in virtue of his insight, mystic wonders by his extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama would come halfway, I would meet him halfway. Then we could both work a mystic wonder by our extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama work one such mystic wonder, I will work two. If he work two, I will work four. If he will work four, I will work eight. Thus, to whatever extent he may perform, I will perform double. Come forth then halfway, friend Patika's son. The Samana Gotama has come all the first half, and is seated in your reverence's park for siesta." "Very well," said that man, consenting, and he went to the Tinduka pollards, the wanderers' park, found Patika's son, and said this: "We have come out, friend Patika's son. There are come out many distinguished Lakavis and Brahmins, and wealthy householders, and various teachers amongst Brahmins and recluses. And the Samana Gotama himself is sitting during siesta in your reverence's park. You, friend Patika's son, have delivered this speech in the assembly at Vasali. Both the Samana Gotama and I affirm that we have insight. Now it becomes one who affirms this to show, in virtue of his insight, mystic wonders by his extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama would come halfway, I would meet him halfway. Then we could both work a mystic wonder by our extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama work one such mystic wonder, I will work two. If he work two, I will work four. If he will work four, I will work eight. Thus, to whatever extent he may perform, I will perform double. Come forth, then, halfway, friend Patika's son. The Samana Gotama has come all of the first half, and is seated in your reverence's park for siesta." When this was told him, Bhagava, the naked ascetic Patika's son, saying, "I am coming, friend, I am coming," writhed about then and there, and was unable to rise from his seat. Then said the man to him, "How now, friend Patika's son? Are your hams stuck to your seat, or is your seat stuck to your hams? You say, 'I am coming, friend, I am coming,' yet you writhe about and are not able to rise from your seat." And though this was said to him, Patika's son repeated, "I am coming, friend, I am coming," but writhed about, unable to rise. Now when the man recognized Patika's son's discomfiture, hearing his words and seeing his incapacity, he went to the assembly and told them, saying, "The naked ascetic Patika's son seems discomfited. He says, 'I am coming, friend, I am coming,' but he only writhes about as he sits and is unable to get up." At these words, Bhagava, I said to the assembly, "Incompetent, friends, is the naked ascetic Patika's son, to meet me face to face. If he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion, if he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder." Thereupon, Bhagava, a certain counselor of the Lakavis rose from his seat and addressed the meeting. "Well then, gentlemen, wait a while till I go and see whether I am able to bring the naked ascetic Patika's son to this assembly." Then that counselor went to the Tinduka pollards, the wanderers' park, found Patika's son, and summoned him to attend, saying, "We have come out, friend Patika's son. There are come out many distinguished Lakavis and Brahmins, and wealthy householders, and various teachers amongst Brahmins and recluses. And the Samana Gotama himself is sitting during siesta in your reverence's park. You, friend Patika's son, have delivered this speech in the assembly at Vasali. Both the Samana Gotama and I affirm that we have insight. Now it becomes one who affirms this to show, in virtue of his insight, mystic wonders by his extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama would come halfway, I would meet him halfway. Then we could both work a mystic wonder by extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama work one such mystic wonder, I will work two. If he work two, I will work four. If he will work four, I will work eight. Thus, to whatever extent he may perform, I will perform double. Come forth then halfway, friend Patika's son. The Samana Gotama has come all the first half, and is seated in your reverence's park for siesta. If you will come, we will make you the victor, and cause the Samana Gotama to lose." When this was told him, Bhagava, the naked ascetic Patika's son, saying, I am coming, friend, I am coming, writhed about then and there, and was unable to rise from his seat. Now when the council recognized the ascetic's discomfiture, hearing his words and seeing his incapacity, he came to the meeting and told them, saying, "The naked ascetic Patika-san seems discomfited. He says, 'I am coming, friend, I am coming,' but he writhes about as he sits and is unable to get up." And when he had thus said, Bhagava, I spake to the meeting and told them again, "Incompetent, friends, is the naked ascetic Patika-san to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion, if he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder. Even if it occurred to my noble friends, the Lakavis, let us bind Patika-san with thongs and drag him hither with ox yokes. Patika-san would break those thongs. Incompetent, friends, is the naked ascetic Patika-san to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion. If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gotama, his head would split asunder." Thereupon Bhagava, Jaliya, pupil of Wooden Bowl, rose from his seat and spoke thus to the meeting. "Well then, gentlemen, wait a while till I go and see whether I am able to bring the naked ascetic Patika-san to this assembly." Then Bhagava, Jaliya, Wooden Bowl's pupil, went to the Tinduka Parlors, the Wanderer's Park, found Patika-san, and summoned him to attend, saying, "We have come out, friend Patika-san. There are come out many distinguished Lakavis and Brahmins and wealthy householders, and various teachers amongst Brahmins and recluses. And the Samana Gotama himself is sitting during siesta in your reverence's park. You, friend Patika-san, have delivered this speech in the assembly at Vesali. Both the Samana Gotama and I affirm that we have insight. Now it becomes one who affirms this to show in virtue of his insight mystic wonders by his extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama would come halfway, I would meet him halfway. Then we could both work a mystic wonder by our extraordinary gifts. If the Samana Gotama work one such mystic wonder, I will work two. If he work two, I will work four. If he will work four, I will work 8. Thus to whatever extent he may perform, I will perform double. Come forth then halfway, friend Patika-san. The Samana Gotama has come all the first half, and is seated in your reverence's park for siesta. If you come, we will make you the victor, and cause the Samana Gotama to lose." When this was told him, Bhagava, the naked ascetic Patika-san, saying, "I am coming, friend, I am coming," writhed about then and there, and was unable to rise from his seat. Now when Jaliya, Wooden Bowl's pupil, recognized the ascetic's discomfiture, he spake to him thus, "Long ago, friend Patika-san, this idea occurred to the lion, king of the beasts. What if I were to make my lair near a certain jungle, so that in the evening I could issue from my lair, and stretch myself and survey the landscape, and thrice roar a lion's roar, and go forth towards the cattle pastures? I could slay the pick of the herd of beasts, feast on a continual diet of tender flesh, and get me back to that same lair." Then the lion friend made his lair near a certain jungle, so that in the evening he could issue from his lair, and stretch himself and survey the landscape, and thrice roar a lion's roar, and go forth towards the cattle pastures. And he would slay the pick of the herd of beasts, feast on a continual diet of tender flesh, and get him back to that same lair. Now, friend Patika-san, there was an old jackal who had continually thriven on the remains of that lion's food, and was stout and strong, and it occurred to him, "Who am I, and who is lion, king of the beasts? What if I were to choose my lair near a certain jungle, so that in the evening I could issue from my lair, and stretch myself and survey the landscape, and thrice roar a lion's roar, and go forth towards the cattle pastures? I could slay the pick of the herd of beasts, feast on a continual diet of tender flesh, and get me back to that same lair." Now, friend, that old jackal chose his lair near a certain jungle, and coming forth in the evening, and stretching himself and surveying the landscape, he thought, "Thrice will I roar a lion's roar," and thereat he roared a jackal's howl, a vulpine howl. Would you compare a vile jackal's howl with a lion's roar? Even so, friend Patika-san, living amongst the exploits of the welfare, feeding on food left over after the welfare has been served, fancy you can reach up to those who are Tathagata's Arhats Buddha Supreme. Why, what have wretched Patika-sons in common with Tathagata's Arhats Buddha Supreme? Now since Jaliya Bhagava was unable even by this parable to make the ascetic leave his seat, he went on. The jackal on himself, reflecting, deemed the lion, I am the king of beasts, and so he roared a puny jackal's whine. For what is there in common twixt the twain, the scurvy jackal and the lion's roar? Even so do you, friend Patika son, living amongst the exploits of the wayfarer, feeding on the offerings set aside for the welfare. You fancy things that are to be set up against Tathagata's Arhat's Buddha Supreme. Why, what have wretched Patika sons in common with Tathagata's Arhat's Buddha Supreme? Now Bhagava, since Jalil was able even by this parable to make the ascetic leave his seat, he said this to him: roaming the pleasant woods, seeing himself grown fat on scraps, until he sees himself no further. A tiger, aye, the jackal deems himself, but lo, he roars a puny jackal's howl. For what is there in common twixt the twain, the scurvy jackal and the lion's roar? Even so do you, friend Patika son, living amongst the exploits of the welfare, feeding on food set aside for the welfare, fancy you can set up yourself up against Tathagata's Arhat's Buddha Supreme. Why, what have wretched Patika sons in common with Tathagata's Arhat's Buddha Supreme? Now Bhagava, since Jalil was unable to even by this parable to make the ascetic leave his seat, he went on thus, feeding on frogs, on bar floor, mice, and on the corpses laid apart in charnel field, and the great forest in the lowly wood. The jackal throve and fancied vain conceits. The lion king of the beasts am I, but when he roared a puny jackal's whine, for what is there in common twixt the twain, the scurvy jackal and the lion's roar? Even so, friend Patika son, living amongst the exploits of the welfare, feeding on food set aside for the welfare, fancy things that are to be set up against Tathagata's Arhat's Buddha Supreme. What have wretched Patika's sons in common with rivals of Tathagata's Arhat's Buddha Supreme? Now Bhagava, since Jalil was unable even by this parable to make the ascetic leave his seat, he went back to the meeting and told them, saying, the naked ascetic Patika's son seems discomfited. He says, I am coming, friend, I am coming, but he writhes about as he sits and is unable to get up. And when he had thus said, Bhagava, I spake to the meeting as before. Incompetent friends is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face. If he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion, if he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gautama, his head would split asunder. If it occurred to my noble friends, the Lakavis, let us bind Patika's son with thongs and drag him hither with ox yokes. Patika's son would break those thongs. Incompetent friends is the naked ascetic Patika's son to meet me face to face, if he withdraw not those words, if he put not away that idea, if he renounce not that opinion. If he thinks that holding to those words, to that idea, maintaining that opinion, he would come to meet the Samana Gautama, his head would split asunder. Thereupon, Bhagava, I taught and incited and aroused and gladdened that company with religious discourse, and when I had so done and had set them at liberty from the great bondage, had drawn forth from 84,000 creatures from the great abyss, Thereupon, Bhagava, I taught and incited and aroused and gladdened that company with religious discourse. And when I had so done and had set them at liberty from the great bondage, had drawn forth 84,000 creatures from the great abyss, I entered on Jhana by the method of flame, rose into the air to the height of 7 palm trees, projected a flame, the height of another 7 palm trees, so that it blazed and glowed. And then I reappeared in the great wood at the gabled hall. Then Bhagava Sunakata the Lakavi came to call on me, saluting, he sat down beside me. To him so sitting, I said, What think you of it, Sunakata? Has it fared with Patika's son as I declared unto you, and not otherwise? It has fared with him even as the Master, the Exalted One, declared unto me, and not otherwise. What think you of it, Sunakata? If it be even so, has the mystic wonder through superhuman gifts been wrought, or has none been wrought? Verily, sir, it being even so, a mystic wonder through superhuman gifts has been wrought indeed. Even so do you foolish man, say of me, working mystic wonders by superhuman gifts. The Master, the Exalted One, works no mystic wonder with his superhuman gifts. Behold, O foolish man, how much you have committed yourself. Thus Bhagava did Sunakata the Lokavi, addressed by me, depart from this doctrine and discipline as one doomed to disaster and to purgatory. The ultimate beginning of things I know, Bhagava, and I know not only that, but further than that. And whilst I know that, I do not pervert it, and as one not perverting it, I even of myself have understood that peace, the which realizing a Tathagata can fall into no error. There are, Bhagava, certain recluses and Brahmins who declare it as their traditional doctrine that the beginning of things was the work of an overmaster, of Brahma. To them have I gone and said, Is it indeed true that the reverend teachers declare it as their traditional doctrine that the beginning of things was the work of an overmaster, of Brahma? And they, so questioned, have answered, A. And then I have said, But how do the reverend teachers declare in their traditional opinion that the beginning of things as the work of an overmaster, of Brahma, was appointed? They, so asked by me, were unable to go any further into that matter, and in their confusion they asked it of me as a counter-question, to whom I, being asked, have made answer. There comes a time, friends, when sooner or later, after the lapse of a long epoch, the world is dissolved and evolved. When this takes place, beings have mostly been reborn in the world of radiance. There they dwell, made of mind, feeding on rapture, radiating light from themselves, traversing space, continuing in beauty, and thus they remain for a long, long period of time. Now there comes also a time, friends, when sooner or later this world system begins to re-evolve. When this happens, the abode of the Brahmas appears, but it is empty, and some being or other, either because his span of years has passed or because his merit is exhausted, deceases from that world of radiance and comes to life in the abode of the Brahmas. And there also he lives, made of mind, feeding on rapture, radiating light from himself, traversing space, continuing in beauty, and thus does he remain for a long, long period of time. Now there arises in him, from his dwelling there so long alone, a dissatisfaction and a longing. Oh, would that other beings too might come to join me in this place. And just then, either because of their span of years had passed, or because their merit was exhausted, other beings fall from the world of radiance and appear in the abode of the Brahmas as companions to him, and in all respects they lead a life like his. On this, friends, that being who was first reborn thinks thus: I am Brahma, the great Brahma, the vanquisher, the unvanquished, the all-seeing, the disposer, the master, the maker, the creator, the chief, the assigner, the master of myself, the creator of all that are and all to be. By me are these beings created. And why is that so? A while ago I thought, would that other beings too might come to this state of being. Such was the aspiration of my mind, and lo, these beings did come. And those beings themselves who arose after him, they too think thus: This worthy must be Brahma, the great Brahma, the vanquisher, the unvanquished, the all-seeing, the disposer, the master, the maker, the creator, the chief, the assigner, master of himself, the creator of all that are and are to be. By this Brahma have we, benevolent sirs, been created. And why is that so? Because he, as we see, arose here first, but we arose after him. On this, friends, that being who first arose becomes longer lived, handsomer, and further powerful, and those who appeared after him become shorter lived, less comely, less powerful. And it might well be, friends, that some other being, on deceasing from that state, should come to this state on earth. So come he might go forth from the household life into the homeless state, and having thus gone forth, by reason of ardor, effort, devotion, earnestness, perfected intellection, he reaches up to such rapt concentration that with rapt mind he calls to mind his former dwelling place, but remembers not what went before. He says thus: That worshipful Brahma, that great Brahma, that vanquisher, the unvanquished, all-seeing, disposer, master, maker, creator, chief, assigner, master of himself, creator of all that are and are to be, he by whom we were created, he is permanent, constant, eternal, unchanging, and he will remain so forever and ever. But we who were created by that Brahma, we have come hither, all impermanent, transient, unstable, short-lived, destined to pass away. Thus was appointed the beginning of things which ye, sirs, declare as your traditional doctrine, to wit, that it has been wrought by an overmaster by Brahma. And they have said, even so have we heard, friend Gotama, as the Reverend Gotama has told us. But I, Bhagavan, know the beginning of things, and have understood that peace, which realizing a Tathagata can fall into no error. There are, Bhagava, certain recluses and Brahmins who declare it as their doctrine that the beginning of things was owing to a debauch of pleasure. To them have I gone and said, is it indeed true that the reverend teachers declare it as their doctrine that the beginning of things was owing to a debauch of pleasure? And they so question have answered, A. And then have I said, but how do the reverend teachers declare in their traditional opinion that the beginning of things as being due to a debauch of pleasure was appointed? They so asked by me were unable to go any further into that matter, and in their confusion they asked it of me instead as a counter question. To them I, on being asked, have made reply. There are, friends, certain spirits called the debauched by pleasure. For ages they pass their time in mirth and sport of sensual lusts. In consequence thereof their self-control is corrupted, and thereby those devas decease from that state. Now it might well be, friends, that some being or other, on deceasing from that state, should come hither, and that having come hither he should go forth from the household life into the homeless state. As a recluse he might acquire the power of recollecting his previous birth, but not what preceded it. And he would say to himself, those worshipful spirits who are not debauched by pleasure, they have not for ages passed their time in the mirth of and sport of sensual lusts. Hence is their self-control not corrupted. Hence they decease not from their estate, but are permanent, constant, eternal, unchanging, and will so remain forever and ever. But we who were pleasure debauched, we did pass our time for ages in the mirth and sport of sensual lusts, whereby our self-control became corrupted, so that we deceased from that estate, and are come to this form of life, impermanent, transient, unstable, short-lived, deciduous. Thus was appointed the beginning of things which ye declare as being due to a debauch of pleasure. And they have said, even so have we heard, friend Gotama, as the Reverend Gotama has told us. But I, Bhagavan, know the beginning of things, and have understood that peace, which realizing a Tathagata can fall into no error. There are, Bhagava, certain recluses and Brahmins who declare as their traditional doctrine that the beginning of things was owing to a debauch of mind. To these have I gone and said, is it indeed true that the reverend teachers declare it as their traditional doctrine that the beginning of things was owing to a debauch of mind? And they so question have answered, Aye. And then have I said, but how do the reverend teachers declare in their opinion that the beginning of things as being due to a debauch of mind was appointed? They, so asked by me, were unable to go any further into that matter, and in their confusion they asked it of me instead as a counter question, to whom I, being asked, have made answer. There are being certain spirits called the debauched in mind. For ages they burn with mutual envy. Hence their thoughts regarding each other become depraved. Hence their bodies become feeble and their minds imbecile. They decease from that estate. Now it might well be, friends, that some being or other, deceasing from that estate, should come hither, and being hither come, should go forth from the household life into the homeless state. As a recluse he might acquire the power of recollecting his previous birth, but not that which went before. And he would say to himself, those worshipful devas who are not debauched in mind, they have not for ages been burning with mutual envy. Hence their thoughts regarding each other have not become depraved. Hence have their bodies not become feeble, nor their minds imbecile. Those devas decease not from that estate, but are permanent, constant, eternal, unchanging, and will so remain forever and ever. But we who were debauched in mind, we did pass the time for ages burning with mutual envy, whereby our thoughts about each other became depraved, our bodies feeble, our minds imbecile. And we have deceased from that estate, and are come hither impermanent, transient, unstable, short-lived, and deciduous. Thus was appointed the beginning of things which ye declare as being due to debauch of mind. And they have said, even so have we heard, friend Gotama, as the Reverend Gotama has told us. But I, Bhagavan, know the beginning of things, and have understood that peace which realizing a Tathagata can fall into no error. There are, Bhagava, certain recluses and Brahmins who declare it as their doctrine that the beginning of things was by chance. To them have I gone and said, is it indeed true that the reverend teachers declare it as their traditional doctrine that the beginning of things was by chance? And they, so question, have answered, Aye. Then have I said to them, but how do the reverend teachers declare that the beginning of things by chance which you teach was appointed? They, so asked by me, were unable to go any further into that matter, and in their confusion they asked it of me instead as a counter-question, to whom I, being asked, have made answer. There are, friends, certain spirits called unconscious beings. As soon as an idea occurs to them, they decease from that state. Now it may well be, friends, that some being or other, having so deceased, comes to this form of life, and so goes forth from the household life into the homeless state. As a recluse, he might acquire the power of recollecting his previous life, but not that which preceded it. And he would say to himself, fortuitous in origin are the soul and the world. And why so? Because formerly I was not, now having non-existed, I am changed into being. Thus was appointed the beginning of things as being due to chance, which you venerable teachers declare as your doctrine. And they have said, even so have we heard, friend Gotama, as the Reverend Gotama has told us. But I, Bhagava, knowing the beginning of things, and I know not only that, but further than that, and knowing it, I do not pervert it, and not perverting it, I, even of myself, have understood that peace, which realizing a Tathagata can fall into no error. Now I, Bhagava, being of such an opinion, certain recluses and Brahmins have falsely, emptily, mendaciously, and unfairly accused me, saying, Gotama the recluse is all wrong, and so are his bhikshus. He has said, whenever one has attained to the stage of deliverance, entitled the beautiful, one then considers all things as repulsive. But this, Bhagava, I have not said. What I do say is this: whenever one attains to the stage of deliverance, entitled the beautiful, one is then aware 'tis lovely. But it is they, Master, that are all wrong, who impute to the Exalted One and to his bhikshus that they err. So delighted am I with the Exalted One that I believe he is able so to teach me that I may attain to and remain in the stage of deliverance, entitled the beautiful. Hard is it, Bhagava, for you, holding as you do different views, other things approving themselves to you, you setting different aims before yourself, striving after a different aim, trained in a different system, to attain to and abide in the deliverance that is beautiful. Look therefore to it, Bhagava, that you foster well this faith of yours in me. If, sir, it be hard for you, holding different views, other things approving themselves to me, I setting different aims before myself, striving after a different aim, trained in a different system to attain to and abide in the deliverance that is beautiful, then will I at least foster well my faith in the Exalted One. These things spake the Exalted One, and Bhagava Gota, the wanderer, pleased in heart, took delight in his words. Gospels, John 3:4. Now there was a Pharisee, a man named Nicodemus, who was a member of the Jewish Brethren ruling council. He came to Jesus at night and said, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the signs you are doing if God were not with him. Jesus replied, Very truly I tell you, no one can see the sovereignty of God unless they are born again. How can someone be born when they are old? Nicodemus asked. Surely they cannot enter a second time into their mother's womb to be born. Jesus answered, Very truly I tell you, no one can enter the sovereignty of God unless they are born of water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to spirit. You should not be surprised at my saying, You must be born again. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. How can this be? Nicodemus asked. You are Israel's teacher, said Jesus, and do you not understand these things? Very truly I tell you, we speak of what we know, and we testify to what we have seen, but still you people do not accept our testimony. I have spoken to you of earthly things, and you do not believe. How then will you believe if I speak of heavenly things? No one has ever gone into heaven except the one who came from heaven, the Son of Man. Just as Moshe lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that everyone who believes may have eternal life in him. For God so loved the world that God gave God's one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send God's Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people love darkness instead of light, because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light, and will not come into the light, for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God. After this, Jesus and his disciples went on to the Judean countryside, where he spent some time with them and baptized. Now John also was baptizing at Enon near Salim, because there was plenty of water, and people were coming and being baptized. This was before John was put in prison. An argument developed between some of John's disciples and a certain Jewish brother over the matter of ceremonial washing. They came to John and said to him, "Rabbi, that man who was with you on the other side of the Jordan, the one you testified about, look, he is baptizing and everyone is going to him." To this John replied, "A person can receive only what is given them from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, I am not the Messiah, but I am sent ahead of him. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete. He must become greater, I must become less. The one who comes from above is above all. The one who is from the earth belongs to the earth, and speaks as one from the earth. The one who comes from heaven is above all. He testifies to what he has seen and heard, but no one accepts his testimony. Whoever has accepted it has certified that God is truthful. For the one whom God has sent speaks the words of God, for God gives the Spirit without limit. The Creator loves the Son and has placed everything in his hands. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life, but whoever rejects the Son will not see life, for God's wrath remains on them." Now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing further disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who was baptized but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once further to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Yaakov had given to his son Joseph. Yaakov's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jewish brother, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jewish brethren do not associate with Samaritans." Jesus asked her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Yaakov, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." He told her, "Go, call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true." "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jewish brethren claim that the place where we must worship is in Yerushalayim." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Creator neither on this mountain nor in Yerushalayim. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. For salvation is come from the Jewish brethren. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshippers will worship the Creator in the Spirit and in truth. For they are in the kind of worshippers the Creator seeks. God is Spirit, and God's worshippers must worship the Spirit and in truth." The woman said, "I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman, but no one asked, "What do you want?" or why are you talking with her? Then, leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" They came out of the town and made their way towards him. Meanwhile his disciples urged him, "Rabbi, eat something." But he said to them, "I have food to eat that you know nothing about." Then his disciples said to each other, "Could someone have brought him food?" "My food," Jesus said, "is to do the will of God who sent me and to finish God's work. Don't you have a saying, 'It's still 4 months until harvest'? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Even now the one who reaps draws a wage and harvests a crop for eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together. Thus the saying, the one sows and another reaps, is true. I sent you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor." Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. "He told me everything I ever did." So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many further became believers. They said to the woman, "We no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man truly is the Savior of the world." After the 2 days he left for Galilee. Now Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own country. When he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Pesach festival, for they also had been there. Once further he visited Cana in Galilee, where he had turned the water into wine. And there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick in Capernaum. When this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. "Unless you people see signs and wonders," Jesus told him, "you will never believe." The royal official said, "Sir, come down before my child dies." "Go," Jesus replied, "your son will live." The man took Jesus at his word and departed. Whilst he was still on the way, his servants met him with the news that his boy was living. When he inquired as to the time when his son got better, they said to him, "Yesterday at 1 PM, the fever left him." Then the father understood that this was the exact time at which Jesus had said to him, "Your son will live." So he and his whole household believed. This was the second sign Jesus performed after coming from Judea to Galilee. Quran, Surah Az-Zukhruf 43. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Ha-Mim. By the book that makes things clear, we have made it a Quran in Arabic that ye may be able to understand and learn wisdom. And verily it is in the more of the book, in our presence, high in dignity, full of wisdom. Shall we then take away the message from you and repel you, for that ye are a people transgressing beyond bounds? But how many were the prophets we sent amongst the peoples of old? And never came there a prophet to them, but they mocked him. So we destroyed them stronger in power than these, and thus has passed on the parable of the peoples of old. If thou were to question them, who created the heavens and the earth, they would be sure to reply, they were created by Allah, the exalted and powerful of knowledge. Yea, the same that has made for you the earth like a carpet spread out, and has made for you roads and channels therein, in order that ye may find guidance on the way, that sends down from time to time rain from the sky in due measure, and we raise to life therewith a land that is dead, even so will ye be raised from the dead. That has created pairs in all things, and has made for you ships and cattle on which ye ride, in order that ye may sit firm and square on their backs, and when so seated, ye may celebrate the kind favor of your Lord, and say, Glory to Allah, who has subjected these to our utilization, for we could never have accomplished this by ourselves. And to our Lord surely must we turn back. Yet they attribute to some of Allah's servants a share with Allah in Allah's deityship. Truly is man a blasphemous ingrate, avowed. What, has Allah taken daughters out of what Allah self creates, and granted to you sons for choice? When news is brought to you of them, of the birth of what he sets up as a likeness to Allah, most gracious, his face darkens, and he is filled with inward grief. Is then one brought up amongst trinkets, and unable to give a clear account in a dispute to be associated with Allah, and they make into females angels who themselves serve Allah. Did they witness their creation? Their evidence will be recorded and they will be called to account. Ah, they say, if it had been the will of Allah most gracious, we should not have worshipped such deities. Of that they have no knowledge, they do nothing but lie. What, have we given them a book before this to which they are holding fast? Nay, they say, we found our fathers following a certain religion, and we do guide ourselves by their footsteps. Just in the same way, whenever we sent a warner before thee to a people, the wealthy ones amongst them said, we found our fathers following a certain religion, and we will certainly follow in their footsteps. He said, what, even if I brought you better guidance than that which ye found your fathers following? They said, for us we deny that ye prophets are sent on a mission at all. So we exacted retribution from them. Now see what was the end of those who rejected truth. Behold, Abraham said to his father and his people, I do indeed clear myself of what ye worship. I worship only Allah who made me, and Allah will certainly guide me. And he left it as a word to endure amongst them who came after him, that they might turn back to Allah. Yea, I have given the benevolent things of this life to these men and their fathers, until the truth has come to them, and an apostle making things clear. But when the truth came to them, they said, this is sorcery, and we do reject it. Also they say, why is not this Quran sent down to some leading men in either of the two chief cities? Is it they who would portion out the mercy of thy Lord? It is we who portion out between them their livelihood in the life of this world, and we raise some of them above others in ranks, so that some may command work from others. But the mercy of thy Lord is better than the wealth which they amass. And were it not that all men might become one evil way of life, we would provide for everyone that blasphemies against Allah most gracious silver roofs for their houses, and silver stairways on which to go up, and silver doors to their houses, and thrones of silver on which they could well climb, and also adornments of gold. But all this were nothing but conveniences of the present life. The hereafter in the sight of thy Lord is for the righteous. If anyone withdraws himself from remembrance of Allah most gracious, we appoint for him an evil one, to be an intimate companion to him. Such evil ones truly hinder them from the path, but they think that they are being guided aright. At length, when such a one comes to us, he says to his evil companion, would that between me and thee were the distance of east and west. Ah, evil is the companion indeed. When ye have done wrong, it will avail you nothing that day, that ye shall be partners in punishment. Canst thou then make the deaf to hear, or give direction to the blind, or to such as wander in manifest error? Even if we take thee away, we shall be sure to exact retribution from them. Or we shall show thee that accomplished which we have promised them. For verily we shall prevail over them. So hold fast to the revelation sent down to thee. Verily thou art on a straight way. The Quran is indeed the message for thee and for thy people, and soon shall ye all be brought to account. And question thou our apostles whom we sent before thee. Did we appoint any deities other than Allah most gracious to be worshipped? We did send Moshe aforetime with our signs to Pharaoh and his chiefs. He said, I am an apostle of the Lord of the worlds. But when he came to them with our signs, behold, they ridiculed him. We showed them sign after sign, each greater than its fellow, and we seized them with punishment in order that they might turn to us. And they said, O thou sorcerer, invoke thy Lord for us according to Allah's covenant with thee, for we shall truly accept guidance. But when we removed the penalty from them, behold, they broke their word. And Pharaoh proclaimed amongst his people, saying, O my people, does not the dominion of Egypt belong to me? Witness these streams flowing underneath my palace. What see ye not then? Am I not better than this Moshe, who is a contemptible wretch and can scarcely express himself clearly? Then why are not gold bracelets bestowed on him, and why come not with him angels accompanying him in procession? Thus did he make fools of his people, and they obeyed him. Truly were they a people rebellious against Allah. When at length they provoked us, we exacted retribution from them, and we drowned them all. And we made them a people of the past and an example to later ages. When Jesus the Son of Mary is held up as an example, behold, thy people raise a clamor thereat in ridicule. And they say, Are our deities best, or he? This they set forth to thee only by way of disputation. Yea, they are a contentious people. He was no further than a servant. We granted our favor to him, and we made him an example to the children of Israel. And if it were our will, we could make angels from amongst you succeeding each other on the earth. And Jesus shall be a sign for the coming of the hour of judgment. Therefore have no doubt about the hour, but follow ye me, this is a straight way. Let not the evil one hinder you, for he is to you an enemy avowed. When Jesus came with clear signs, he said, Now have I come to you with wisdom, and in order to make clear to you some of the points on which ye dispute. Therefore fear Allah and obey me. For Allah is my Lord and your Lord, so worship ye Allah, this is a straight way. But sects from amongst themselves fell into disagreement, then woe to the wrongdoers from the penalty of a grievous day. Do they only wait for the hour that it should come on them all of a sudden, whilst they perceive not? Friends on that day will be foes one to another, except the righteous. My devotees, no fear shall be on you that day, nor shall ye grieve. Being those who have believed in our signs and bowed their wills to ours in Islam, enter ye the garden, ye and your wives, in beauty and rejoicing. To them will be passed round dishes and goblets of gold. There will be there all that the souls could desire, all that their eyes could delight in, and ye shall abide therein for aye. Such will be the garden of which ye are made heirs for your benevolent deeds in life. Ye shall have therein abundance of fruit, from which ye shall have satisfaction. The sinners will be in the punishment of hell, to dwell therein for aye. No wise will the punishment be lightened for them, and in despair will they be overwhelmed. And in despair will they be there overwhelmed. No wise shall we be unjust to them, but it is they who have been unjust themselves. They will cry, O Malik, would that thy Lord put an end to us. He will say, Nay, ye shall abide. Allah will say, Nay, but ye shall abide. Verily we have brought the truth to you, but most of you have a hatred for truth. What, have they settled some plan amongst themselves? But it is we who have settled things. Or do they think that we hear not their secrets and their private counsels? Indeed we do, and our messengers are by them to record. Say, if Allah most gracious had a son, I would be the first to worship. Glory to the Lord of the heavens and the earth, the Lord of the throne of authority. Allah is free from the things they attribute to Allah. So leave them to babble and play with vanities until they meet that day of theirs which they have been promised. It is Allah who is Allah in heaven and Allah on earth, and Allah is full of wisdom and knowledge. And blessed is Allah to whom belongs the dominion of the heavens and the earth, and all between them. With Allah is the knowledge of the hour of judgment, and to Allah shall ye be brought back. And those whom they invoke besides Allah have no power of intercession. Only He who bears witness to the truth, and they know Him. If thou ask them who created them, they will certainly say, Allah. How then are they deluded away from the truth? Allah has knowledge of the Prophet's cry. O my Lord, truly these are people who will not believe. But turn away from them and say, Peace, Salam. But soon shall they know. Tao Te Ching 49 a 54. 49. The sages have no constant mind. They take the mind of the people as their mind. Those who are benevolent, I am benevolent to them. Those who are not benevolent, I am also benevolent to them. Thus the virtue of benevolence. Those who believe, I believe them. Those who do not believe, I also believe them. Thus the virtue of belief. The sages live in the world. They cautiously merge their mind for the world. The people all pay attention with their ears and eyes. The sages care for them as children. Coming into life, entering death. The followers of life, 3 and 10. The followers of death, 3 and 10. Those whose lives are moved towards death, also 3 and 10. Why? Because they live lives of excess. I've heard of those who are beneficial at cultivating life. Traveling on the road, they do not encounter rhinos or tigers. Entering into an army, they are not harmed by weapons. Rhinos have nowhere to thrust their horns. Tigers have nowhere to clasp their claws. Soldiers have nowhere to lodge their blades. Why? Because they have no place for death. Tao produces them. Virtue raises them. Things shape them. Forces perfect them. Therefore all things respect the Tao and value virtue. The respect for Tao, the value of virtue, not due to command, but to constant nature. Thus Tao produces them, virtue raises them, grows them, educates them, perfects them, matures them, nurtures them, protects them, produces but does not possess, acts but does not flaunt, nurtures but does not dominate. This is called mystic virtue. 52. The world has a beginning. We regard it as the Moor of the world. Having its Moor, we can know her children. Knowing her children, still holding on to the Moor, live without danger all through life. Close the mouth, shut the doors, live without toil all through life. Open the mouth, meddle in the affairs, live without salvation all through life. Seeing details is called clarity. Holding on to the soft is called strength. Utilize the light, return to the clarity, leaving no disasters for the self. This is called practicing constancy. 53. If I have a little knowledge walking on the great Tao, I fear only to deviate from it. The great Tao is broad and plain, but people like the side paths. The courts are corrupt, the fields are barren, their warehouses are empty. Officials wear fineries, carry sharp swords, fill up on drinks and food, acquire excessive wealth. This is called robbery. It is not the Tao. 54. That which is well established cannot be uprooted. That which is strongly held cannot be taken. The descendants will commemorate it forever. Cultivated in yourself, its virtue shall be true. Cultivated in the family, its virtue shall be abundant. Cultivated in the community, its virtue shall be lasting. Cultivated in the country, its virtue shall be prosperous. Cultivated in the world, its virtue shall be widespread. Therefore observe others within yourself. Therefore observe others with yourself. Observe other families with your family. Observe other communities with your community. Observe other countries with your country. Observe the world with the world. With what do I know the world? With this. Alhamdulillah Rahman Rahim. Allahu Akbar. Deus nos dê que as encheres são vida no meio Vaheguru Sama. Dao Kedao Fehudao. Ja. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kezanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu L'sok B'Bari Torah. Amen. Kyrie eleison. Silva Mastu Savjigatahi. Sabe Satan Bomatu Sukhitata. Fakabia. Umbuntu. Shabbat. Fekako. Aquaba. Pendan Amani. Umejika. Shisha. Kamosamida. Domo Arigato. Turuma Yelo Wakata. Talk or do good. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Lord, living God. Ata Jamia Yata Afnami. Visit Hashem. Aho. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Zaijen. Adios. Jai Jakaris. Asmuro. Killing Ufrid. One love and peace.